Welcome to the role of sponsors in the VISTA network. This module is part of the orientation learning path for new VISTA sponsor staff. It was recorded December 2020. In this presentation, we'll look at different types of VISTA sponsors and projects. We'll then review the roles and responsibilities of VISTA sponsors. VISTA sponsors are the host organizations that create VISTA projects and provide a place and infrastructure for VISTA members to serve. Sponsoring organizations bring expertise in identifying local needs and designing solutions that include VISTA's service. They are project leaders and play a critical role in developing successful VISTA projects. As you can see, many types of entities serve as VISTA sponsors. Here are the three types of VISTA projects. A single-site project is just what it sounds like, an organization that hosts VISTAs at a single location. Often, the same person serves as the project director and the supervisor. A multi-site project is sponsored by an organization that has VISTA members serving at multiple locations. Here, one individual serves as the project director, and staff at each site serve as supervisors. An intermediary project is one that is sponsored by a central organization that establishes formal agreements with other organizations where the VISTA members serve. As with the multi-site model, one individual serves as the project director, and staff at each site serve as supervisors. There are some differences in how each type of project is managed, so it's important to pay attention to the instructions that apply to your project type. Intermediary and single-site projects make up the majority of VISTA projects, with 43% and 42% respectively. Multi-site projects account for 15% of the total. Established VISTA sponsors and supervisors have a wealth of first-hand experience in managing VISTA projects, and many are willing to share their insights. The VISTA campus has a discussion forum called the Supervisor Cafe that allows you to connect with other VISTA sponsors. You'll find it on the Supervisors page at vistacampus.gov. Sponsors have core responsibilities in 5 areas: VISTA project development and management, following VISTA's legal framework, communications, reporting, and VISTA member management. Each sponsor may assign these responsibilities as appropriate within the organization. Intermediary and multi-site sponsors are responsible for ensuring that all their sites are in compliance as well. Let's start by looking at sponsor roles related to project development and management. Here are the 5 main areas within project development and management. We'll take a look at each in turn. The first one began when your organization developed its VISTA project application, and it continues as you implement the project plan. If it has been a while since you submitted the application, or if it was created by someone else, review the narrative section on project management. You'll want to make sure you are on track to set up the project sites, community involvement, project assessment, and collaboration with other programs that are described in the plan. These are the sponsor tasks associated with administering the VISTA project, including the grant or award and managing project or subsites. Sponsors must follow the requirements set forth in the grant terms and conditions and in the Memorandum of Agreement, or MA. The MA lays out the specifics of your organization's legal agreement with AmeriCorps, so you need to be very familiar with it. And it contains the general grant terms and conditions that apply to all VISTA grants. If your grant includes a cost share agreement, you are responsible for submitting payments to AmeriCorps, either every 2 weeks or once a month. If your project receives a program grant, you will have additional responsibilities to manage the funds and submit financial reports. If you have questions about your agreement with AmeriCorps, access the agreement in eGrants or reach out to your AmeriCorps regional office. If your VISTA project operates at more than one service site, You are required to identify and train site supervisors so that there is a trained VISTA supervisor at each location where VISTA members serve. You will also need to set up systems for communications, recruitment, and reporting at each site. If you are an intermediary sponsor, you must have a memorandum of understanding with each of your sub-site organizations. Like many federal programs, VISTA has some rules that must be followed, and each sponsor is responsible for monitoring their project to ensure that they and their VISTA members are following those rules. We will look more closely at this in just a moment. Your project plan identifies certain performance measures that you will use to measure the results of the project. You will need to set up data collection methods to gather and evaluate information along the way, rather than waiting until reports are due to your AmeriCorps regional office. And finally, you will need to provide training and technical assistance to your VISTA members, so they will be equipped to successfully complete their assignments. And if you have multiple sites, you will need to train your site supervisors on their roles in the project as well. We'll talk more about member training a little later on. Now, let's shift to the second major responsibility of sponsors, complying with VISTA's legal framework. VISTA members are placed in local communities to build capacity to alleviate poverty. To maintain this focus, there are restrictions on the tasks that VISTA members may perform so that they stay focused on their approved VISTA assignment description. There are a number of things VISTA sponsors must do to make sure they and their VISTAs comply with the regulations. They first must know and understand the rules that govern VISTA resources and member activities. Next, they must provide training and technical assistance to VISTA members, site supervisors, and others involved with the project to ensure everyone understands what VISTAs are able to do and what they're not. And sponsors must monitor the project for compliance. And if issues are identified, they need to take corrective action. In an earlier module, you learned about the types of activities that are not allowed in the VISTA program, prohibited activities like lobbying and replacing staff. There is another type of activity that the VISTA members are generally not allowed to perform, and that is direct service. While not legally prohibited, VISTAs should not spend a significant amount of time directly serving project beneficiaries. However, VISTAs may engage in limited amounts of direct service when it supports their capacity building activities. For example, a VISTA who developed a financial literacy curriculum could teach a couple of classes to see how well the curriculum works. For further details on prohibited activities, please visit Chapter 15 of the VISTA Member Handbook. The consequences for violating the prohibited activities are serious, so please be sure you understand these well and are able to support your team and VISTAs. Sponsors have several responsibilities related to communications, both with their AmeriCorps regional office and with the public. First is maintaining regular communications with your AmeriCorps regional office about your project, whether the news is good or bad. By communicating openly and regularly, you position them to best support you. Alert your AmeriCorps regional office to major accomplishments and events like grant awards, visits from elected officials, and press coverage. There's also some news that shouldn't wait until your next progress report. Notify your AmeriCorps regional office right away about emergencies like member hospitalizations or arrest, as well as any acute or chronic challenges with member performance or conduct. Also, talk to your AmeriCorps regional office about proposed changes to your project goals and member activities. That is, any changes to the VISTA assignment description, as well as shifts in staffing, supervision, or organization status. Affiliate your project with the AmeriCorps brand. Acknowledge the resources you receive by identifying AmeriCorps VISTA members as such, and list AmeriCorps as a funder of your organization. Please be sure to list AmeriCorps VISTA on your website, program materials, and in press releases about the project. Finally, you'll want to share information about your VISTA project throughout your communities and networks. Publicize your VISTA project activities, successes, and member stories in press releases to your local media, as well as on your website and social media channels. Next, let's take a look at reporting requirements. Each VISTA project submits a set of reports to help AmeriCorps regional and headquarters staff review their progress. The report demonstrates your resource management and your project's impact. Your AmeriCorps Regional Office will provide you the deadlines for your reports, as well as instructions for submitting them. Here are the types of reports you will submit. You will report on project activities through two reports. In the VISTA Project Progress Report, or PPR, you share numerical and narrative information on what's been happening with your project, including accomplishments around things like training, resource development, and partnership information, as well as any challenges encountered. The progress report becomes part of a project's official record and is used to determine which projects to continue. The PPR is submitted quarterly. In the fall, you submit the VISTA Progress Report Supplement, which gathers numerical data on the AmeriCorps performance measures for your project for the fiscal year. The data allows AmeriCorps to demonstrate the national impact of the VISTA program. There are two reports relating to VISTA members. Every 2 weeks, you submit a sponsor verification form that verifies which of your VISTAs were serving during that pay period. At the end of a member's service, you submit a brief performance evaluation for your VISTA as part of the Future Plans form. If your project receives a program grant or a support grant from VISTA, you will need to submit the federal financial report twice a year. And if your project has a cost share agreement, you will need to submit payments for the cost share invoices you receive from AmeriCorps. Finally, let's look at responsibilities relating to member management. Your member management responsibilities include member recruitment, member training, and member supervision. Let's take a look at each. You'll need to conduct outreach and recruitment to attract applicants for your member positions. The recruitment process can span several months, and you'll want to have a clear plan in place. Once you start receiving applications, you are responsible for screening applicants for eligibility and suitability. And then, once you complete your interview process, you will select candidates and recommend them for service to your AmeriCorps Regional Office. When your VISTA members begin their service, you are responsible for providing an in-depth on-site orientation and training to orient them to your organization and the VISTA project, and to build skills they will need in service. You will submit a written OSOT plan to your AmeriCorps Regional Office before you are approved for any member placements. To support you, the VISTA campus offers a number of resources and on-demand webinars to help you plan your OSOT. The next aspect of member management is day-to-day supervision and support of your members. Provide the space, supplies, and equipment necessary to carry out their service. Set up regular meetings and maintain effective communication. Provide reasonable accommodations to members who request them. In the area of timekeeping, develop a system to track VISTA members' use of personal and medical leave. Check the VISTA member handbook for the rules regarding member leave and holidays. And finally, there are several member activities that require your approval. Teleservice and outside employment. Though these activities are allowed, certain rules apply, and VISTA members must request approval through their project supervisor, who then sends the forms on to the AmeriCorps Regional Office. In the area of performance management, have your members track what they accomplish. You will use the data when reporting to AmeriCorps. Have your VISTAs create a procedure manual that explains how they did what they did to build project sustainability. Even the best-run projects can experience challenges with their members. It's important to manage those challenges appropriately, and that means addressing member issues as they arise, documenting all discussions, keeping track of performance issues, copies of communications, etc., and informing your AmeriCorps regional office early. Only AmeriCorps may remove members from a project or terminate them, so your documentation and timely communication with the AmeriCorps regional office are essential in these circumstances. And finally, as noted earlier, VISTA requires a brief evaluation in each member's future plans form. I encourage you to consider additional opportunities to offer feedback, correction, and recognition of your VISTA service throughout their year, and build in a thorough exit interview and project closeout meeting with your members. To summarize, in this module, we looked at the types of VISTA sponsors and VISTA projects that exist each year, and then we reviewed the roles and responsibilities of VISTA sponsors. Thank you for completing the roles of sponsors in the VISTA network, and thank you for your ongoing partnership with AmeriCorps VISTA.